During the supply disruptions of 2020 through 2022, something happened in grocery stores that most people still haven't fully processed. Shelves were stripped bare within hours, not days. Hours. Entire aisles of rice, pasta, canned soup, canned beans, gone by early afternoon on day one. And this happened not once, but repeatedly, across multiple disruption events in cities across the country. But here's the thing that almost nobody reported on. In those exact same stores, on those exact same days, there was a second category of food sitting completely untouched, fully stocked. Not because it was lower quality, not because it was more expensive, because the people panic buying had never thought to put it on their list. That gap between what the crowd grabs and what quietly stays available is the entire premise of this video. This is my secret stockpile. 15 foods I don't talk about in most prepper conversations, because the moment everyone knows about them, the advantage disappears. Each one fills a specific gap that standard prepper lists leave completely open. And together they don't just form a list. They form a system. A second layer that sits on top of your basics and addresses the failure points most people never see coming until it's too late. Before we go further, if you're new here, the channel is built around information asymmetry. Knowing things that most people in the preparedness space haven't caught up to yet. Subscribing means you get that layer before it becomes common knowledge. We're counting down from 15 to 1. The items get more important, more obscure, and more strategically valuable as we go. Number 1 is something I've never seen covered on any prepper channel, and it solves a storage problem that most people don't even know they have. Let's get into it. Item 15. Black-eyed peas. The bean everyone forgot. Most preppers have a bean strategy. Kidney beans, pinto beans, black beans, big bags, long shelf life, solid protein. It's a reasonable foundation. But almost universally, people are ignoring the best bean in the category, and the reason they're ignoring it is exactly the reason it belongs on this list. Black-eyed peas do not require soaking. Every other common prepper bean, kidney, pinto, navy, black, requires 8 to 12 hours of soaking before cooking, followed by a full boil. In a normal kitchen, that's inconvenient. In an emergency situation where fuel is limited and time matters, that's a real operational problem. Black-eyed peas go from dry to fully cooked in approximately 45 minutes with no prep. You can have a complete hot meal from a dry bag in under an hour. The nutritional case is equally strong. One cooked cup delivers approximately 13 grams of protein, 11 grams of fiber, and this is the part most people don't know, one of the highest iron and folate concentrations of any legume in the standard prepper toolkit. Iron is critical for oxygen transport and energy metabolism. Folate becomes particularly important for women of childbearing age in any extended emergency. These aren't minor micronutrients. They're ones that standard stockpiles consistently come up short on. Cost is approximately $1 per pound at most grocery stores and ethnic markets. Shelf life in a sealed mylar bag with an oxygen absorber is 25 to 30 years, matching hard wheat berries. You get full legume nutrition, complete amino acid complementarity when combined with any grain, fast cook time, and essentially zero shortage pressure at any retail level. Store a minimum of 25 pounds. That's under $40 and represents hundreds of complete meals. This is the bean that outperforms on every practical metric, and almost nobody is buying it. That gap is your advantage. But protein alone won't hold your system together if stress dismantles something most preppers never think to protect. Item 14. Fermented miso paste in foil pouches. The probiotic layer. Here is something that doesn't appear on any standard prepper list and should. Your gut and your immune system are not separate systems. They are the same system operating in different locations. Approximately 70% of your immune tissue lines the gut wall. Under sustained physical and psychological stress, exactly the conditions of a prolonged emergency, the gut microbiome degrades measurably. That degradation doesn't just cause digestive issues. It suppresses immune response, disrupts serotonin production, and affects cognitive performance. The research connecting gut health to mental clarity and immune resilience is well established in general terms, though individual variation is significant. Most people's instinct when they think probiotics is refrigerated yogurt or a supplement bottle. Both become unavailable or degrade within the first days of any sustained disruption. Neither belongs in a long-term stockpile. Miso paste in sealed foil pouches is the answer that almost nobody has found yet. Miso is fermented soybean paste with origins going back over 1,000 years in Japanese food culture. The fermentation process creates live cultures and complex amino acid chains that survive in foil packaging without refrigeration. 1 teaspoon dissolved in hot water produces an instant broth that's savory, satisfying, and delivers meaningful gut-supportive compounds. A single 1 kilogram pouch runs approximately $8 at Asian grocery stores and provides well over 200 servings. Doenjang, the Korean equivalent of fermented black bean and soybean paste, is even more widely available and carries comparable properties. Both sit entirely outside mainstream prepper awareness. Neither experiences shortage pressure during disruption events. Stock 5 pouches minimum. Rotate annually. Integrate into everyday cooking now, so your family is accustomed to the flavor before you ever need to rely on it. What comes next addresses a mineral gap that conventional stockpiles leave completely open, and that your body will start signaling within weeks. Item 13. Bouillon cubes. The invisible force multiplayer. If you've been prepping for more than 6 months, you know about bouillon cubes. You've probably heard them mentioned. And there's a reasonable chance you still don't have enough of them, or that the ones you have are stored wrong. Let me tell you exactly why this matters more than most people realize. During every major supply disruption of the last decade, bouillon cubes registered essentially zero shortage pressure. While rice, pasta, and canned goods were stripped from shelves within hours, bouillon sat completely untouched. People who manage food distribution have confirmed this pattern repeatedly. The reason is simple. Most people don't think of bouillon as survival food. They think of it as a cooking ingredient. That perception gap is your operational advantage. I keep 800 cubes in my own stockpile. The first time I told my prepper group that, they thought I was overcommitted to soup. Now they get it. Here's the actual science behind why bouillon belongs at the center of your stockpile strategy, not the edge. Research on extended emergency food consumption consistently identifies what nutritionists call taste fatigue, a documented cognitive and psychological response to dietary monotony. It typically sets in by day 3 or 4. That's when people begin skipping meals, eating less than their caloric requirement, and making progressively worse decisions at exactly the moment when decision-making matters most. 1 bouillon cube dropped into a pot of plain rice doesn't just improve the meal. It changes the neurological relationship your family has with mealtimes. Sodium and concentrated minerals support electrolyte balance. The flavor transforms something difficult into something your household will actually want to eat. The military understood this before modern nutrition science confirmed it. Bouillon-style concentrates have appeared in field rations across multiple militaries for decades specifically because they address both the nutritional and psychological dimensions of sustained emergency feeding. Storage is straightforward. Pull cubes from cardboard packaging immediately. Cardboard absorbs moisture over time and degrades the product. Transfer into glass mason jars with a silica gel packet. Sealed that way, they maintain flavor and structural integrity well past the printed date. 500 cubes for under $30. That's 500 meals made significantly more tolerable, with no competition at any retail location during a crisis. Item 12. Whole dried mushrooms. The vitamin D nobody stockpiles. Here is a question I want you to sit with for a moment. Name 1 shelf-stable food in your current stockpile that provides meaningful vitamin D. Most preppers can't answer that. And it's a genuine problem. Vitamin D regulates immune function, bone calcium absorption, mood stability, and inflammatory response. Your primary source in normal life is sun exposure. Your secondary source is animal products, fish, eggs, dairy, all of which become unavailable quickly in any sustained disruption. Commercially available foods with meaningful vitamin D are almost exclusively refrigerated or perishable. Dried mushrooms solve this in a way almost nothing else can. When shiitake mushrooms are dried with UV exposure, gill side up, facing sunlight, They concentrate vitamin D2 at levels that persist in the dried product for months under proper storage conditions. One serving of properly sun-dried shiitake provides meaningful vitamin D contribution toward daily requirements. Commercially packaged dried shiitake marked as sun-dried carry this property. Those that are shade-dried or artificially dried do not check the label. Beyond vitamin D, dried mushrooms are exceptional umami delivery systems. They transform plain rice, lentils, or grain dishes into something with genuine depth and palatability, which returns us to the taste fatigue problem that undermines stockpile effectiveness after week 1. A handful of rehydrated dried shiitake stirred into a broth base with a bouillon cube produces a genuinely satisfying meal from essentially nothing. Rehydrate in cold water for 20 minutes. Use the soaking liquid as broth. It carries significant flavor and water-soluble nutrients. Store in sealed glass jars in a cool, dark location. 1 pound of dried shiitake represents approximately 60 servings at under $12. Asian grocery stores maintain deep, consistent inventory with essentially no shortage pressure. Stock 5 pounds minimum. Rotate annually. This is a vitamin D source that will still be on the shelf when everything else is gone. Now we get into the nutrient that most stockpiles are built as though it doesn't exist. Item 11. Nutritional yeast. The B12 insurance policy. Most preppers hear nutritional yeast and move on immediately. It doesn't sound like survival food. It sounds like something from the supplements aisle next to things nobody can pronounce. I want to explain exactly why that reaction is the most valuable thing about it for your stockpile. Because that reaction is universal. And universal dismissal means universal availability during a crisis. Here's the nutritional reality. 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast delivers approximately 8 grams of complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids, the ones your body cannot synthesize on its own. That's roughly the protein equivalent of 1 large egg, with 0 cooking, 0 refrigeration, and no preparation at all. Sprinkle it on rice. Stir it into soup. Mix it into reconstituted powdered milk. It integrates into almost any meal invisibly. But the B12 content is where this becomes genuinely serious. Nutritional yeast is one of the most concentrated non-animal sources of vitamin B12 available in shelf-stable form. B12 directly governs neurological function, cognitive clarity, and energy metabolism at the cellular level. In a prolonged emergency where food variety is necessarily limited, B12 depletion can become a measurable medical concern. Research on nutritional deficiencies during food restriction consistently identifies B vitamins as an early risk factor for cognitive decline. Your stockpile may be calorie sufficient and still be setting up a slow, invisible decline in the judgment capacity of everyone relying on it. A stockpile that's calorie sufficient but micronutrient deficient will produce declining performance over time. That affects your judgment at exactly the moment when your judgment matters most. 5 pounds of nutritional yeast costs approximately $40 and provides months of supplemental B12 and protein across an entire family's emergency diet. Health food stores, larger grocery chains, and online suppliers carry it consistently. It exists entirely outside mainstream prepper purchasing behavior, which means your access is never in competition with the crowd. Item 10. Full-fat canned coconut milk. Filling the fat gap. Your brain is approximately 60% fat by dry weight. Let that land for a moment. Because most prepper stockpiles contain almost no fat whatsoever. White rice, essentially 0 fat. Dried beans, negligible amounts. Most commercial freeze-dried meals have fat deliberately stripped out during production because fat oxidizes and shortens shelf life. That's a smart manufacturing decision. It's a real physiological problem for you. Fat is not optional. Your body needs it to absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K, none of which can enter your system without it, regardless of how much you've stored. It's required for hormone production, thermal regulation in cold environments, sustained energy output, and brain function. A stockpile without adequate fat isn't just nutritionally unpleasant. It's physiologically incomplete in ways that compound over days and weeks. Full-fat canned coconut milk solves this directly and efficiently. 1 can contains approximately 50 grams of fat, predominantly medium-chain triglycerides. MCTs convert to usable energy more rapidly than long-chain fats, which is particularly valuable during physical exertion and cold conditions. Shelf life holds at up to 5 years, exceeding most standard canned goods categories. At under $2 per can at Asian grocery stores, stores that experience significantly less panic buying pressure. The stretching math is also practically useful. 1 cup of dry rice produces approximately 2 servings. Add half a can of coconut milk and you push that toward 3 or 4 portions with significantly higher caloric and fat density. In a rationing scenario, that adjustment has meaningful day-to-day impact. Store 50 cans minimum, rotating oldest to front. Have you ever noticed what category disappears first in your area during a shortage? Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what people are seeing across different regions. And the next item is something that's been used to preserve food without refrigeration for thousands of years, and almost no prepper has ever thought to grab it. Item 9. Ghee. Room temperature butter that lasts for years. Imagine a power outage lasting 2 weeks. Your refrigerator is off. Your butter went bad within the first 4 days. You have no cooking fat, no way to add caloric density to your meals, and no way to safely fry anything over a camp stove. That scenario is exactly why ghee belongs in your stockpile and butter doesn't. Ghee is clarified butter, regular butter that's been slowly heated and strained to remove all milk solids and water. Those milk solids are the primary mechanism behind butter's spoilage. Remove them, and you've removed the biological basis for the product going bad at room temperature. What remains is pure butter fat with an entirely different storage profile. Commercially produced ghee carries a printed shelf life of 1 to 2 years at room temperature in a sealed glass jar. The actual chemistry is even more favorable than the label suggests. The near total absence of moisture creates an environment inhospitable to microbial growth. Properly sealed ghee stored at stable temperatures, away from heat and direct light, remains usable well beyond that date. Heat fluctuations and light exposure do matter. A stable, cool, dark location is still required. 1 tablespoon delivers approximately 112 calories, almost entirely from fat, along with fat-soluble vitamins A, E, and K. The smoke point sits at approximately 485 degrees Fahrenheit, significantly higher than regular butter or olive oil, making it the safest option for high-heat cooking over a camp stove. No risk of burning the fat and degrading its nutritional value. Storage is about as simple as it gets. Glass jar. Room temperature. Away from direct light and heat sources. No mylar bags. No oxygen absorbers. No special preparation. A dozen jars runs $12 to $15 each. This is one of the few foods on this list that genuinely holds up better the longer it sits sealed. Keep a dozen jars in rotation. The next item addresses a mineral deficiency so common in prepper stockpiles that it's practically built into the standard approach, and it can appear within weeks of relying on stored food alone. Item 8. Collagen peptide powder. The recovery gap. Here is something that almost no prepper channel talks about, and it becomes relevant faster than most people expect in an actual emergency. Physical labor in a crisis, moving supplies, securing structures, extended walking, manual tasks that modern life has largely automated, tears down connective tissue at a rate your body struggles to keep pace with under normal nutrition. Under emergency nutrition, that rate compounds. Joints ache earlier. Wounds heal slower. Gut lining integrity, which is partly collagen dependent, begins to degrade under prolonged physical and dietary stress. Most preppers think of protein as one category. It isn't. Collagen is a structurally distinct protein class. It provides glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline in ratios your body needs specifically for connective tissue maintenance, gut wall repair, and skin integrity. Your body cannot synthesize these in adequate quantities under high physical stress without dietary input. Collagen peptide powder dissolves completely in cold water. It has no taste, no texture, no preparation requirement beyond stirring. Add it to water, broth, coffee, or any liquid in your stockpile, and it disappears completely while delivering its full protein contribution. A 1-pound bag runs approximately $30 and provides roughly 45 servings. Shelf life is approximately 2 years sealed. This is a protein source that complements, rather than competes with, everything else on this list. TVP handles your bulk protein. Nutritional yeast handles your B12 and complete amino acids. Collagen handles the specific structural repair functions that neither of those address. It sits entirely outside mainstream prepper awareness and will be on the shelf during any disruption. The item coming up at number 5 changed how I think about the entire stockpile. But first, we need to cover the mineral gap that could quietly undermine your thyroid function within days of any sustained disruption. Item 7. Dried seaweed. The iodine gap nobody talks about. Here is a health problem that most prepper stockpiles are silently constructing, and almost nobody in the preparedness community addresses it. Iodine deficiency is the world's most common cause of preventable cognitive impairment. Your thyroid gland requires iodine to produce the hormones that regulate metabolism, energy production, body temperature, and mental clarity. In normal life, most people in developed countries get their iodine from 2 sources: iodized table salt and dairy products. Both of those become unreliable within the first days of any sustained disruption. And virtually no standard prepper stockpile contains anything that meaningfully addresses iodine. Dried seaweed is the most concentrated natural source of iodine available in shelf-stable form. A single sheet of nori contains iodine levels that approach or exceed the adult daily requirement of approximately 150 micrograms. Worth noting clearly, iodine intake requires moderation. Very high intake can also disrupt thyroid function, particularly in individuals with pre-existing thyroid conditions. 1 or 2 servings per day is appropriate, not unlimited consumption. But for most people eating a standard stored food diet with no other iodine source, 1 serving of nori daily provides meaningful thyroid support. That's only the beginning. Wakame is rich in magnesium, calcium, and folate. Dulse, a red variety with a naturally salty flavor, provides meaningful iron and potassium. Some varieties of nori carry up to 35% protein by dry weight. These aren't token nutritional contributions. They address gaps that standard stockpile foods leave almost entirely open. Shelf life for dried seaweed is exceptional. Archaeological analysis of sealed storage vessels in ancient structures has recovered dried seaweed with a largely intact nutritional profile, making it among the most storage-stable foods. Stored in an airtight container in a cool, dark location, modern dried seaweed maintains nutritional quality for years. Practical use requires almost no preparation. Crumble nori into rice during the last few minutes of cooking. Add dried wakame to boiling water with a bouillon cube for an instant mineral-rich broth. Use dulse as a salt substitute that brings additional mineral value. Asian grocery stores maintain deep, consistent inventory across all major varieties with essentially zero panic buying pressure. A full year's supply for a family of 4 runs approximately $40 to $50. The iodine gap is real. This closes it. Item 6. Chia seeds. Hydration stored in a bag. Most people associate chia seeds with health food trends. That framing is accurate and completely misses what they actually do in an emergency context. Start with the hydration property, because this is the mechanism that matters most when conditions deteriorate. Chia seeds absorb up to 12 times their own weight in liquid. When consumed, they form a gel in the digestive tract that slows gastric emptying. 2 practical consequences follow directly from that. Your body extracts nutrition from food more efficiently across the digestive process. And you feel full significantly longer on the same caloric intake. Research indicates satiety extending 2 to 3 hours longer in meals. In a rationing scenario, that means fewer total meals required per day, a smaller draw on your overall food supply, and better sustained cognitive function through the gaps between meals. The Tarahumara people of northern Mexico, documented for extraordinary endurance performance under desert conditions, relied on chia as a core dietary staple. Researchers have connected aspects of their hydration efficiency to that consumption pattern, though the direct causal relationship is debated and individual variation is significant. The pattern, however, is consistent enough to be worth understanding. The nutritional profile fills multiple stockpile gaps simultaneously. 1 ounce provides approximately 11 grams of fiber, 9 grams of fat from omega-3 fatty acids, and 4 grams of complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids. It is one of very few plant-based complete protein sources available in shelf-stable form. The omega-3 angle deserves specific attention. Fish oil supplements, a common emergency supplement choice, degrade significantly within 12 to 18 months. Chia seeds vacuum-sealed in amber glass maintain their omega-3 content for up to 5 years with no meaningful degradation. No comparable shelf-stable alternative exists for long-chain omega-3 storage. No preparation required. Eat raw. Soak in water to form a gel. Add directly to any cooked food. 10 pounds vacuum-sealed in amber glass costs approximately $60. Shortage pressure at health food stores and bulk retailers is essentially non-existent. If this list is making you rethink your approach, a quick like helps reach people still building their first layer. They need this information more than most. Item 5. Premium instant noodles from Asian grocery stores. The morale mechanism. I stock 200 blocks of premium instant noodles. My prepper group, for years, thought I had fundamentally misunderstood the purpose of emergency food storage. They were wrong. And the reason they were wrong is documented in the research, not a matter of preference. The standard prepper framework gets the major priorities right: calories, shelf life, nutritional density. But it consistently ignores one factor that becomes operationally critical within the first week: food fatigue. Food fatigue is not boredom. It is a documented cognitive and psychological phenomenon with measurable behavioral outcomes. Research on dietary monotony in prolonged emergencies shows measurable declines in problem-solving performance, increased anxiety response, and spontaneous reductions in caloric intake as people begin psychologically resisting the same meal pattern. People start eating less than they need because the food becomes something to endure rather than something to consume. Boring food makes you cognitively less effective in a crisis. High variety and high palatability are not comfort indulgences. They are functional requirements for sustained performance under stress. Now, and this distinction is critical, I am not talking about the 25-cent packages from mainstream grocery chains. What you find at H-Mart 99 Ranch or comparable Asian grocery stores is a fundamentally different product. Brands like Indomie, Nissin's international product lines, and Samyang use real dehydrated vegetables, complex spice blends, mushroom-based umami components, and frequently egg-based noodles with genuine protein content. Some varieties deliver 8 to 10 grams of protein per block. The flavor variety is the actual operational value. Tonkatsu, laksa, kimchi, tom yum, curry, genuinely distinct eating experiences that your family can rotate through over 2 weeks without the palatability collapse that monotony produces. 3 to 4 minutes to prepare. Minimal water requirement. No additional ingredients needed. At 30 to 50 cents per block purchased in bulk, 100 servings cost under $50. And here is the supply chain reality that makes this category uniquely valuable. Panic buying concentrates almost entirely at mainstream grocery chains. Asian grocery stores experience significantly less pressure during disruption events because these products simply don't appear on most people's emergency mental inventory. Store in original packaging inside sealed plastic bins in a cool, dry location. These blocks will be on Asian grocery shelves when conventional retailers are empty. Item 4. Textured vegetable protein. Meat equivalent at 1/10 the cost. There is a protein gap inside most standard prepper stockpiles that becomes obvious the moment you run the actual numbers. Rice and beans together form a complete amino acid profile over time that's well established. But their protein density per pound of storage weight is low. Freeze-dried meat solves the density problem, but at $20 or more per serving equivalent, the cost compounds to a level that makes meaningful long-term storage impractical for most households. Canned meat offers moderate protein per can, but adds significant weight, carries a shelf life of only 3 to 5 years under typical conditions, and costs multiples more than the alternative we're discussing. Textured vegetable protein, TVP, solves this more efficiently than any comparable option currently available. TVP is dehydrated soy protein processed into granules or small chunks. When rehydrated, it takes on a texture structurally similar to cooked ground meat. The dehydration ratio is the number that defines its value. 1 pound of dried TVP rehydrates into approximately 3 pounds of protein-dense food. At roughly $6 per pound retail, That works out to approximately $2 per pound of meat equivalent. Freeze-dried ground beef costs $12 to $20 for the same protein equivalent. TVP delivers a comparable functional outcome at roughly 1/10 the cost per calorie of protein. 1 cup of dry TVP contains approximately 50 grams of protein. Soy protein is a complete source, providing all 9 essential amino acids in adequate ratios. One important note: individuals with soy allergies or documented sensitivities should verify this carefully before including it. It is not appropriate for everyone, but for those who can use it without issue. The value is genuinely hard to match across any other shelf-stable protein category. Shelf life stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside food-grade containers reaches 10 to 15 years, matching hard wheat berries and significantly outperforming canned meats. Preparation is straightforward. Soak in hot water or broth for 8 to 10 minutes. Volume increases approximately 3 times. From that point, it functions anywhere you'd use ground meat, chili, pasta sauce, tacos, stew. Reconstituted in bouillon broth, it produces a meat-flavored, protein-complete base that is nutritionally solid and genuinely acceptable to eat over an extended period. 20 pounds in Mylar bags costs approximately $120 and represents the protein equivalent of 60 pounds of ground meat at a fraction of the weight, cost, and storage space. Transfer immediately from original packaging into Mylar. 1 oxygen absorber per bag. Store in food-grade buckets in a cool, dry location. Item 3. Powdered milk in Mylar. The packaging upgrade that changes everything. Powdered milk appears on nearly every basic prepper list, and there is a very strong chance that if you have it in your stockpile right now, you're storing it in a way, and you won't find out until you actually need it. The problem is the packaging it came in. Cardboard is permeable. It allows slow, continuous moisture and oxygen exchange over time. Powdered milk stored in its original cardboard box under normal household conditions will clump, oxidize, develop off flavors, and lose meaningful nutritional quality. The timeline varies by environment, but the degradation mechanism is consistent and unavoidable. The exact same powdered milk, heat-sealed in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside, maintains full nutritional quality. That is not a marginal improvement. That is the same product moved into an entirely different storage tier by one step that takes approximately 10 minutes and costs almost nothing if you already own a basic impulse sealer. The nutritional case for the product itself is strong. Powdered whole milk provides calcium, phosphorus, protein, vitamin D, and a range of B vitamins, one of the most complete single-food micronutrient profiles available in shelf-stable form at approximately 150 calories per quarter cup of dry powder. Practically, it serves an extraordinary range of functions, reconstituted for drinking, added to cooking water for rice or oatmeal to increase caloric and fat density, used in baking, combined with bouillon and vegetable powder to produce cream-based soups, or used to make simple soft cheese or yogurt when no other dairy source is available. Dairy disappears fast in any disruption event. Fresh milk, cheese, and butter become inaccessible within the first days. 30 pounds of properly sealed, powdered milk covers the dairy nutritional base for months. Store in 2-pound Mylar bags, each with a single 300cc oxygen absorber, inside 5-gallon food-grade buckets with Gamma Seal lids. One practical behavioral tip that compounds over time: start blending powdered milk into your regular cooking now. Mixed 50-50 with fresh milk in most recipes, it's nearly undetectable. Do that consistently, and by the time you need to rely on it fully, it won't be a jarring change for anyone in your household. Item 2. Hard winter wheat berries. 25 years in a sealed bucket. This is the foundation item on this list, and it works differently from everything else here, because the value isn't in what it is. It's in what it becomes, and what it can keep becoming for the next 25 years. Hard winter wheat berries are whole, unhulled wheat kernels exactly as they come off the plant. Unprocessed, unground, unrefined. That intact state is precisely what gives them a storage profile unlike almost anything else available to you right now. Stored in sealed food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers, hard winter wheat berries maintain nutritional viability for 25 to 30 years. Some long-term grain storage research suggests stability beyond that under optimal hermetic conditions, though practical household estimates center on the 25 to 30-year range. Compare that to standard all-purpose white flour, which begins lipid oxidation within 8 months of milling and is genuinely degraded nutritionally within 1 year under typical storage. The chemistry explains the difference simply. The German bran layers of the wheat kernel contain oils that oxidize when exposed to oxygen. Inside the intact seed coat, those layers are fully protected. Milling exposes them. Oxidation begins immediately and cannot be reversed. Keeping the grain whole prevents that process indefinitely. You are not storing a finished product with a fixed expiration date. You are storing a raw material that can produce fresh flour on demand for decades. Using it requires a hand-crank grain mill. A quality cast iron model costs approximately $60 a one-time purchase that requires no electricity. Freshly milled wheat flour retains all of the bran, germ, and endosperm intact. The vitamin, mineral, and healthy fat content substantially exceeds anything in a bag of flour on a grocery shelf, which has typically been oxidizing for months since it was milled. Caloric density is strong, approximately 1,600 calories per pound of dry grain. 200 pounds stored in 4 5-gallon buckets costs approximately $70 and provides a family of 4 with flour for 12 or more months of normal consumption. But the most important use of wheat berries in an extended emergency has nothing to do with milling. Sprouted in a glass jar with only water and indirect light, wheat berries produce fresh sprouts within 3 to 4 days. Those sprouts provide living enzymes, vitamin C and folate, nutrients that are largely absent from any long-term stored food diet. This matters medically, not just nutritionally. Vitamin C deficiency, scurvy, is not a historical curiosity. It is a documented outcome in isolated populations with restricted diets. In an extended emergency without access to fresh produce, it becomes a genuine risk within weeks. Wheat sprouts are one of the only practical ways to produce nutritionally complete fresh food without a garden or any artificial lighting. Sealed 5-gallon food-grade buckets. 1 2,000 cc oxygen absorber per bucket. Label each with the fill date. Cool, dark, stable location. No moisture exposure. This item will outlast nearly everything else in your stockpile and actively serve your family for as long as you need it to. Item 1. Potato flour. The 10-year secret. This one takes a moment to understand because it's genuinely unfamiliar to most people who've been prepping for years. And that unfamiliarity is not a weakness. It is the single most valuable characteristic it has. Let me be specific about what this is, because the distinction matters. Potato flour is not potato flakes. It is not instant mashed potato powder. It is flour milled from whole dried potatoes. That difference in processing produces a storage profile that places it in a fundamentally different category than virtually any other flour available to you right now. Stored in an airtight food-grade container with an oxygen absorber, potato flour maintains quality for up to 10 years. Standard all-purpose white flour begins to go rancid within 8 months under the same conditions. That is more than a decade of additional usable shelf life from a product that costs approximately $8 for a 5-pound bag. At that price, the cost per year of storage ratio is lower than almost anything else on this list. The nutritional profile adds further value beyond just the shelf life. Potato flour is naturally gluten-free. For the approximately 1% of the population with celiac disease and the larger percentage with non-celiac gluten sensitivity, gluten avoidance stops being a dietary preference in an extended emergency and becomes a genuine medical necessity. Gluten-free alternatives, when people finally think to look for them during a shortage, disappear quickly from specialty and health food stores. Potato flour, sitting entirely outside mainstream prepper awareness, tends to stay fully stocked. The resistant starch content is worth understanding clearly. Resistant starch is a dietary fiber that passes through the small intestine undigested and feeds beneficial gut bacteria in the colon. Research consistently connects adequate resistant starch intake to improved satiety, you feel fuller for longer on the same caloric intake, and to positive gut microbiome support. In a rationing scenario, that satiety extension has direct practical value day over day. But here is what actually puts potato flour at number 1 on this list. Mixed with water and a pinch of salt, cooked on any flat surface, including a camp stove, a cast iron pan over a fire. Warm, fresh, actual bread. In the middle of an emergency. And what that does to the atmosphere around a meal for your children, for whoever is sitting at that table with you, is genuinely hard to quantify. It signals something. That someone planned ahead. That there is enough. That this situation, however difficult, is being managed by someone who thought further than the obvious. That signal is not a luxury. It is a functional component of sustained morale and group cohesion under stress. And you can deliver it for $8 a bag with zero competition for that bag during any disruption event. Store in food-grade buckets with gamma seal lids and a single oxygen absorber. High shelf life, low cost, zero competition during shortages. This is what second-tier prepping actually looks like. Not the food everyone knows to grab. The food that quietly outperforms everything they're grabbing. Look at all 15 together and the pattern becomes clear. Black-eyed peas give you fast, fuel-efficient protein when time matters. Miso pouches protect the gut immune connection that stress attacks first. Bouillon covers flavor and electrolytes across every other meal. Dried mushrooms fill the vitamin D gap that almost nothing else in a shelf-stable stockpile can. Nutritional yeast covers complete protein and B12. Coconut milk and ghee fill the fat gap that most stockpiles are built as though doesn't exist. Collagen powder covers the connective tissue and gut repair functions that bulk protein can't. Dried seaweed covers thyroid and mineral health. Chia seeds handle hydration efficiency, omega-3s, and extended satiety. Premium instant noodles maintain the palatability and morale required to keep eating adequately and thinking clearly. TVP delivers meat-equivalent protein at a fraction of the cost. Powdered milk in mylar fills the dairy nutrient gap for years, not months. Hard winter wheat berries provide fresh flour and fresh sprouts for 25 years from a single purchase. And potato flour gives you flatbread in 5 minutes from an $8 bag. Each one of these targets a specific. Together they form a system that is nutritionally complete, psychologically sustainable, and costs well under $500 for a family of 4 across several months of coverage. Every single one of these was fully stocked during the major supply disruptions of 2020 through 2022. The items that disappeared were the items everyone knew to buy. These stayed on shelves because nobody thought to reach for them. That is not a coincidence. That is the entire point. 3 final principles that determine whether any of this actually works when you need it. Rotate what you store into regular cooking now. Your family needs to be familiar with these foods before an emergency requires them. Unfamiliar food under stress compounds the psychological difficulty of an already difficult situation. Keep storage in a cool, insulated interior space. A 10-degree temperature increase roughly halves effective shelf life. A garage or shed, cycling between summer heat and winter cold, will quietly cost you years of viability on everything you've invested in. Use oxygen absorbers and sealed mylar inside food-grade buckets. That single step extends effective shelf life by a factor of 3 to 5 over standard pantry storage. It is the highest leverage action you can take across your entire stockpile. Which of these 15 is the one you're adding to your stockpile this week? Drop a 1 in the comments. One number. That's it. I read every single one, and it genuinely helps me understand where most people are starting from. And if this list surprised you, next week I'm covering the 10 tools most preppers buy last that they should have bought first. Number 3 on that list is something I've never seen on any mainstream prepper channel, and it changes the operational picture of a 2-week emergency completely. You don't want to miss that one. I'll see you there.